I introduce to you Mr. Justin Medina from Zealand. Please stand up.
Hello. Sorry. Oh, go ahead.
Wow. Thank you for that introduction, Jayla. President Rosalie Corpus, the stunning Mrs. Sinaitanians, the honorees of the night, officers, members, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good evening. You know, if there's something that I know about Filipino women, is that they are truly like that saying, fine wine. They only get better with time. True story. I do a lot of traveling, and whatever country I find myself in, every time they find out that I'm Filipino, the men, they go on and on, talking about how sexy and beautiful Filipino women are. True story. Every country. And I don't know whether to thank them or to start fighting. I don't know what to do. But anyway, first off, I want to congratulate the Sinaitanians for reaching this day tonight, and I want to humbly thank you for allowing me to take part in this honor. You know, when I accepted this honor to be with you tonight, I went home and sat down with my dad, and I asked him to tell me a little bit about Sinait. He told me stories of how humbly he and his sisters had grown up and how small the town was. There was one grocery store open one day a week, and the number of stores and shops were so easy to count because there were so little. Even to play basketball with his friends, he had to bicycle down to the next town, Vigan. You could even ask Dr. Edison Kabakungan about that one. Mind you, they didn't all have their own bikes. Sometimes they had to ride 2 or 3 on one bike. True story. Well, today, Sinait, it's no longer like that. There are roads paved, Western-style homes, mansions, Western-style mansions sprouted up. Hospitals, hotels, and businesses have multiplied. The opportunities have greatly outweighed what they were in the past. And Sinait owes that progress to all of you here tonight. All of you Sinaitanians who have taken a bigger interest in the well-being of your hometown, the remarkable achievement of that is from your unity, love, and passion of your hometown. And for that, we thank you once again. Now I want to be honest, I'm not 100% Sinaitanian, as you know, as you heard in the introduction of Jane Corpus. My mom, Angelita Ruiz Medina, she's from Loag City, Ilocos Norte, while my father, as you know him, Dr. Rodolfo V. Punzalan, is from Sinai, Ilocos Norte. Nevertheless, I am 100% Filipino and 100% Ilocano through and through. Now finally, I want to speak to you about something a little bit more serious. A little bit about something that hits closer to home. And that is the welfare and the status and state of our Filipino comrades globally today. Most especially, I want to direct this talk to the young adults here tonight. Now, I'm sure by now you've all felt the economic collapse of 2008, and it's definitely touched every Filipino globally, worldwide. Since then, you've probably seen some of your parents or friends' parents prolong their retirement, friends struggling to find jobs, buddies, good friends, couples, married couples, waiting to get married or even waiting to have a baby. I hate to say it, but just being Filipino alone, or the sons and daughters of immigrants, I'm sure you've gone through your own unique challenges. Now, those of you may not have known, but the Philippines is on an upward-bound economic boom. Just 10 years ago, it was an economy based in agriculture, and today, it is now one of Asia's latest industrialized economies. The growth has steadily risen over the past several years, and major international banks now call Manila their headquarters. True story. I have a couple of friends who work for JP Chase, or had worked for JP Chase back in Tokyo, Japan. And they still work for that company, but now in Manila. That economic trend of high businesses and international banking is still going. It hasn't stopped. And although that may sound rather inspiring to you all tonight, although that may sound nice, the fact of the matter is that the majority of the people, the average person in the Philippines, will probably not be able to feel the fruits of that new economic growth. Unemployment and job loss is steeper. Politics seems nastier. Congress is gridlocked more than ever. And the foreign corporations allowed to do business on the Filipino land aren't necessarily acting in the best interest of your fellow Filipino citizens. And that's why it doesn't surprise me that our faith in governments, both here in the United States and in the Philippines, are at its lowest. Particularly when good news doesn't get the same amount of airtime as bad news. When you turn on your TV or open up the newspaper, only to see bad news and scandal after scandal. These stories subconsciously come with a very cruel message. A message suggesting that change is not possible. That you, me, that we can't do anything better than what we've already done. That we won't be anywhere better than where we are. In fact, the cynic in me believes that those messages are actually purposely designed to lead you to believe that you deserve less than what you think you believe you deserve. But my job here tonight is to tell you all, don't believe it. I've seen the passion and I've seen the service of our Filipino people. I've seen us turn out in record numbers to support a good cause. And I've seen a generation of Filipinos eager to step into the rushing waters of history to change its course and make it better. And that strong will, that I can do it type of attitude, is what thrives. It is the lifeline of what runs through the veins of Filipino history. From the British occupation of Manila, to the Philippine Revolution against Spain, to the Philippine-American War. Throughout history, when Filipinos cooperate and gather as one, we prevail. Here's a short story. Here's a short story. I was on an 8-hour train ride, riding from Madrid to Lisbon, Portugal. I actually ended up meeting a real humble, real soft-spoken, reserved man. As soon as he found out I was Filipino, Guy went crazy. Not only about the Filipino women, I tell you. He was talking about history. This man introduced himself later on to me, and he told me he was a professor at one of the top universities in Lisbon, Portugal. Do you want to know what he taught?
Yes.
He taught 17th century Spanish colonization of the Philippines. What an interesting, very interesting subject. I wish they had that here in the States for all of us to study. Well, I'll never forget one story that he told me. He mentioned about all his studies and his, what he taught his students and all his studies and trying to get his degree. And he mentioned a tribe. A tribe that was known for its fearless ferociousness. That tribe was called the tribe of Tirong. I'm not sure if too many people know about that tribe. That's right. That fearless, ferocious warrior tribe, they were located in what is now called Sinaitanians. That tribe was your ancestors and mine. And it's that fearless, ferocious spirit that we need, all of you here tonight, you Sinaitanians, to embrace and rekindle again. The question is not whether things will get better, because they always usually do. Not whether we have the solutions to our challenges, because guess what? You've already had them. We know that life would be better back home in the Philippines if more Filipinos were to receive the type of education that most of us here tonight have received. We know that life would be better back home in the Philippines if most of the Filipinos were able to get the skills and job training that employers were really looking for. And we know that we would all be better off if every single Filipino, man, woman, and child, never ever had to go to sleep hungry because they didn't have anything to eat. We would be having a feeling of enthusiasm if Filipino people back home didn't necessarily have to leave their homeland, didn't have to leave their motherland just to seek an opportunity for a better future. We're better off when our fellow countrymen are helping one another. We're better off when more Filipinos are graduating from college. When we're creating our own wealth and going back home to each town and each barangay, investing, developing hotels, resorts, restaurants, factories, even call centers. Several of you Sinaitanians here tonight have done just that. I have seen, I have heard. The new Sinait is totally different from what I explained to you how my dad grew up. We know we're better off when those businessmen like yourselves employ locally to work in local businesses, because that paycheck, that money is going into the mouths of your fellow townmates, elevating the local economy and boosting fundamental social progress. And we will know that we're all better off when every Filipino, no matter what country they live in, are treated equally, fairly, and righteously in every aspect of life. We know these things to be true. We know that we can solve our challenges. It's not that hard. The question is whether we can work together and gather the strength to do what needs to be done. And I'm convinced that the Filipino people worldwide possess that strength. I know this is true. Partly simple math. The latest statistics say that about 10 million Filipinos live outside of the Philippines, and 4 million of those are here in the United States. That's according to the latest US Census. That's 4 million legal Filipinos, by the way. There's probably another 4 elsewhere. More of us are graduating with college degrees, master's degrees, and PhDs. The trend of Filipinos and Filipino Americans in the healthcare industry has never fallen. It's only risen. More and more of us are breaking out of our traditional roles and entering into less typical careers in the creative arts, performing arts, and computer science. There's a booming increase of actors even, athletes, Manny Pacquiao, and musicians who are now recognized on that international level. And after decades of slow but extraordinary progress from the generation before us, this generation, my generation, has an outstanding opportunity to make this the century that Filipinos reshape their destiny. But how far that leadership takes us will ultimately be up to you all. You've got to want it. It will not be handed to you. And as for somebody who wants a better future for you and somebody who's had the good fortune of being raised by a strong, extraordinary Sinaitanian father and an extremely frugal, bargain-hunting, penny-pitching, remarkable, beautiful mother, allow me to offer you a few pieces of advice. Don't just talk the talk. You have to act. Actions speak louder than words, as we all know. We all have ideas and dreams that we want to get accomplished, but acting won't magically get you there. You've got to take action. Next, don't just act though. You'll need to fight. Fight for your seat at that table. In fact, fight for your seat at the head of the table. The elders before us understood that life, the world, it doesn't stand still. It's always moving, with or without you. They didn't stop until they created a better future for their children. They didn't move backward, they only moved forward. Now that the ball is in our court, it's up to us to right the wrongs. It's up to us to point out injustice. It's up to us to hold ourselves and our communities accountable, to organize and rally and lobby, to dream, develop and create, to forgive, forget, and move on, to trust, love, and to bond. It's up to you to stand up for yourself and your people. And sometimes, you might have to take total control, uproot it all, turn things over, and rearrange it in a better, proper manner. Don't just be content sitting back, watching as opportunities pass you by. Don't wait for the next person to do the job that you know you need to do, because they might just be waiting for you. Which brings me to my next piece of advice. Never underestimate the power you have to inspire people. The very fact that we're all sitting here tonight at such a grand event, such a grand hotel in downtown Los Angeles, well, that's only possible because of the earlier generations that have come before us. The lolos, the lolas, the nanangs, the tatangs, the manongs and the manangs. They broke the chains that held the idea that you couldn't or shouldn't be where you are today. They followed their dreams for a greener pasture, and that greener pasture was for you and me. Now, it's our obligation to set a positive example for the next generation. Whether you realize it or not, it really is your responsibility. You may not have asked for it, but it has already been given to you. The doors have been broken. The doors have been broken down wide. And now, If you don't realize it already, I'll tell you. You have more opportunities than most people in the world today. Mostly, especially back in home in the Philippines. If you've earned a degree in an area that lacks a Filipino population, why not persuade another Pinoy to study that field too? If you're going into business or a career where there's a lack of Filipinos, why don't you look for some and hire them? Become someone's role model. Become someone's mentor. Because until young Filipinos can see other Filipinos doing bigger and better things, trust me, they won't be able to imagine themselves doing bigger and better things. You know, it's been asked to me before, who inspired me? And as I got older in life, I realized that the most influential people to me were the people who raised me and the people I was surrounded by growing up. My mother and father, they're extraordinary people, they're outstanding people, but it's only because of the people who raised them and the brothers and sisters they had around them growing up. So understand that you do have power, but you have to use it wisely. My last piece of advice, it's very important, probably the most important. Follow through and persevere. Do not give up. Nothing that was ever worthwhile ever came easy to anybody. No one who has ever achieved anything worthwhile has ever avoided failure. They learned from their mistakes and they didn't quit. You know, when my father first came to this country, he told us stories of how he only had 2 camisetas, 1 pair of shoes, 3 pairs of pants. Whatever the story was, one thing I know for sure, he had a lot less options than I do. A lot less. You know, my earliest memories growing up, sadly, it didn't even really have my father in them. And I contribute that because he must have been working very hard. So hard that I didn't really remember seeing him from such a young age. It was as if my mother was taking care of 5 children all by herself. I remember stories my brothers telling me that they had to use boxes, moving boxes as tables to eat off of for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And I remember personally having to go to the local malls in Texas during the summertime because it was so hot and we did not have air conditioning. I remember my mother baking these extravagant cakes and all kinds of desserts throughout the night. I don't remember eating those cakes, ever. Later I found out those cakes were being made as a side business my mom had just to make enough money so that my dad wouldn't have to work so hard. I remember having to move from house to house and city to city and state to state because my dad was always searching for something better. You know, I may have been small at the time, but my memory is huge. It was finally in my high school career that I finally put things together and I finally realized the truth of the matter of why my father's work schedule was so heavy. Well, he was working for his community. My father, your fellow Sinaitanian, Rodolfo V. Punzlan, had dedicated his life's work to uplifting his fellow countrymen and women. He was one of the founders and pioneers of the medical missions in various areas throughout the Philippines, Mexico, and even here in this state of California. Not just Southern California, Northern and Central. It took only one conversation with the mayor of Delano. If you don't know where Delano is, it's a city in Central California where over 50% of the population is Filipino. Coincidentally, that 50% is Ilocano. It's a farming community. It took one conversation with that mayor, where the mayor voiced his opinion and his concerns regarding the well-being of the healthcare of his community, for my dad to act. He went up there, started a clinic. He would drive 6 hours every Sunday from 1981 through the year 2001. He would treat the Filipino community as well as offer free services to the Filipino and Latino farmers who didn't have health care from their farmer employers or didn't even have the money to go seek health care elsewhere. You know, I remember it like it was yesterday. Those farmers that didn't have any money, they had something better. They had gratitude. They couldn't pay for their services monetarily, financially, but they paid with crates and crates and crates of grapes. Boxes of fruits and vegetables.
Chickens.
And sometimes, believe it or not, cockfighting chickens. They must have known my dad was a sabongero. Well, he's not the only Filipino. Many of you have done things like this, extraordinary things like this. And for that, you will be remembered throughout history. Trust me, his life wasn't easy, and it had come with its shares of ups and downs and failures too. But I realized that long after the Lord takes him, his memory, legacy, and inspiration will live on forever throughout the hearts and minds of every Filipino he's touched. People like Dr. Doroteo Ines, your fellow Sinaitanian, the first president of this organization, the first Filipino to run for state assembly, and, more importantly, a pioneer filmmaker who documented the injustices suffered by Filipino and Filipino Americans of his generation. Angelita Albano Castro, the first female ever to be an operations manager for NASA. Carlos P. Romulo, former president of the United Nations and Pulitzer Prize winner. Felipe Tolentino, Harvard professor. Philip Veracruz and Larry Itliong, labor rights activists. They're all Ilocano. Folks like these inspire me. Those quiet heroes that keep going when the going gets tough. Those humble individuals that persevere no matter how much the odds are stacked up against them. Maybe some of your parents, your brothers and sisters here tonight, they just persevere. They do their jobs and they meet their responsibilities. They don't quit. They may not have set out to change the world, but in some small important way they did. At least they have for me. So whether it's starting a business or running a small office or raising a family, remember that making your mark on this world is tough. It's hard. It's difficult. It takes patience. It takes commitment. And it will come with plenty of setbacks and plenty of failures. So whenever you feel less confident about yourself, whenever you hear those voices say that you can't do it, whenever you hear someone tell you that you need to set your sights lower, what your elders have done before you should give you hope. What the younger generations of Pinoys have done for us should give us hope. Everything past generations have done, they didn't just do it for themselves. They did it for us. And that is why we are able to stay here right now. So if you're willing to do your part, if you are willing, I will be there right beside you. If you're willing to uplift the lives and the lifestyles of your fellow Filipino citizens, I'll be with you every step of the way. Now more than ever, the Philippines needs what you have to offer. Your duty is not only for your own benefit, don't forget that. Each one of you here tonight represents something much bigger. Bigger than yourselves alone. You represent an entire ethnicity. You represent a nation that is on your shoulders, whether you like it or not. When the least of us act foolish, we're all labeled foolish. And when the least of us act wisely, we all come out as winners. We sink, we swim, we rise and we fall, and we meet our fate together. So if you take action, if you fight for the seat at that table, if you want to begin to set a better example, I have every faith that not only will you succeed, but through you, our people will succeed and continue to rise and be restored to our proper place at the head of the table. And in closing, remember that each one of you here tonight is blessed. Each one of you here tonight is a blessed individual. For you no longer are a small group of individuals hoping and only dreaming. We are now one single body descended from a class of highly successful, ferocious individuals. We should be a breed of new leaders, rooted in morals and dedicated to God. We can't settle for anything less. We should not settle for anything less than our dreams. And each one of us has a destiny that we must follow. Each one of us will take a path or create that path to follow that destiny. Never lose courage. Always persevere. Carry on. And don't give up. You must be the change that you seek in this world and through your neighbor. And as I look around the room tonight, the sheer potential overwhelms me. I see doctors and lawyers, musicians, artists, philanthropists, teachers, wonderful parents, and future parents. You gotta believe that you can really make a difference. You gotta believe that you can really make a change. And as you know, you will face struggles and you will face failure. There will be obstacles. But always remember that there is no failure big enough, no struggle hard enough, no obstacle great enough if you dare to dream. Dare to dream of a better future. Dare to dream of a stronger faith. Dare to dream of a better quality of life for you and the next generation. To all of you in my generation, wherever you are out here, don't be afraid to dare to dream those impossible dreams. And to all of you who have come before my generation, I thank you and congratulate you on daring to dream. Thank you.